Ah, the Premier League. The greatest football league in the world. Where the performance skill floor has been raised so high it turns each match week into a must-win game for 38 nail-biting long weeks. Superstars and elite teams aren't born here. They're made. Players pick themselves up off the pitch, with sweat and tears dripping down their face and onto their kits. In the scrutiny of stadium floodlights, these teams kick, jump, slide, tackle, fall, and fight for their place at the top. Mentality monsters for 90+ minutes. This year, the race for the Premier League title is beyond tight, demanding near-perfect performances across 3 of England's best teams: Arsenal, Manchester City, and Liverpool. It's insane to even attempt to describe how tight the title race feels, especially with the surrounding context of the 3 teams. There's so much shit week in and week out that affects players and performance. Injuries have plagued Liverpool for months. Arsenal scraping by in the Champions League round of 16. Pressure and mind games plague City. Match weeks are bloated with cup games, leaving little time for players to rest and recover. There's levels to this game not everyone can overcome. In comes EA Sports FC, the supposed #1 football simulator on the market. Loaded with mountains of data poured into the most advanced technology ever put to sports simulation. True next-gen information making simulation into a reality. EA doesn't so much boast its innovation with this year's features as much as it foregrounds its immersion. To blur the line is a verbatim quote used to describe its revolutionary gameplay. But is that really true? Can EA Sports FC actually use its tech to simulate real-world football? And what about the things you can't simulate? How do you replicate aura? How do you replicate mentality? How do you replicate stadium atmosphere? I mean, come on, look at this. How do you replicate the thousands of little intricacies that make up a player and the decision-making players make in the 10th of a second while sprinting full speed into a crowded penalty box? Well, with AI and machine learning, of course. With 590 million frames of real-world data processed through proprietary animation algorithms. With the most advanced tech ever put to a football game. Or so they claim. So let's put it to the test. Let's use it to predict this year's Premier League winner. Welcome to the club. Get your cleats on and get ready for kickoff. Save Room is underway. Before we start our first match, let's set the stage. At the time of writing, there are 10 games left in the season, with 3 teams fighting for the top. Pep Guardiola's Man City, the reigning champions of England and last year's treble winners. That's Premier League, Champions League, and FA Cup. Hope to defend their title. They currently sit 3rd with 63 points. With Jurgen Klopp's final year at Liverpool, the Reds hope to make a final push to bring home farewell silverware and finally upset City, even if by the slimmest of margins. They currently sit 2nd with 64 points. And after failing to secure the top spot, Mikel Arteta's Arsenal seek to remedy last year's results by pushing the Gunners to remain in top form across the closing weeks. They currently sit top with 64 points, ahead of Liverpool only by goal difference, leading with a 46 goal differential as opposed to Liverpool's 39. I'm telling you, the race is tight this year. If Arsenal and Liverpool win the rest of their games, the decider will come down to that goal differential number, a calculation of how many goals they've scored this season minus the number of goals conceded. This means that both teams need to be in top goal-scoring form to either secure their spot or close the gap. For the most accurate simulation, I'll be starting the rest of the season with a list of current injuries that exclude certain players from the squad. This means that I can't pick a Liverpool team with Trent Alexander-Arnold in the starting 11 for the home game against Brighton, as he still probably won't be back in form while he recovers from knee injury. I'll also keep track of both yellow and red cards received in match games, so players that have to deal with suspensions won't be available for subsequent games. Hey, it's Editing Christian here. Real quick, EAFC makes it much harder to simulate games. I wasn't able to actually choose a starting lineup since I'm not controlling either of the teams. The only way to do that is if I simulated an entire season as a manager or player, which I just didn't have the time to do for each team. Big grain of salt, sorry about the weaker controlled environment, but thought you should know. Anyway, back to it. I'll simulate each match on a week-to-week basis and go over key plays before detailing the final score and providing a weekly points update on the table. You thought I forgot about European games and Cup games. Nope. We'll be going over those too. Champions League, Europa League, and FA Cup. All silverware is still up on the table. Our simulation begins with an FA Cup doubleheader. Liverpool away against Manchester United, and Man City at home against Newcastle. Man City go 1-0 up against Newcastle, while Liverpool go 1-0 down to Manchester United. City progresses in the FA Cup while Liverpool get knocked out. It's finally match 1 of our Premier League simulation. At Anfield, Liverpool take home 3 points against Brighton thanks to a goal from Mohamed Salah. It's a big game over at the Etihad as third place Manchester City hosts first place Arsenal. The Gunners prove themselves up to the task and take home 3 goals and 3 big points. Manchester City 0, Arsenal 3. As things stand, the table stays the same at the end of the first week. For match week 2, we begin with Arsenal at home against Luton Town. 2 near-miss headers from both sides keep things level at the Emirates. Arsenal and Luton will split the points. Liverpool, with a chance to go up top, host Sheffield United. The Blades, however, prove too tough and score a big goal to take all 3 points away from the Reds. And scoreless at the Etihad sees Manchester City and Aston Villa splitting their points. It's the end of week 2 and all positions stay the same yet again. At the start of match week 3, Arsenal travel to Brighton. Brighton go up early in the second half, but a red card on Mitoma sees Brighton down to 10 men immediately after. Arsenal, able to capitalize, get 3 goals from Saka, Havertz, and Gabriel Jesus. They get an important win. At Old Trafford, Manchester United host Liverpool. Thanks to an important goal, Bruno Fernandes makes sure United take all 3 points. Manchester United 1, Liverpool 0. And lastly, an early goal by Crystal Palace is not enough to shut out City, as Erling Haaland equalizes late in the first half. Ultimately, it's Haaland with a hat-trick and Alvarez with a beautiful strike that seal it for City. Things stay the same at the end of match week 3, but City slowly creeping toward that second place spot, behind only on goal difference. As we begin match week 4, we see Villa take the lead deep into the second half against Arsenal. It's enough to take down the Gunners at the Emirates, leaving Arsenal with 3 points dropped. A scoreless night at Anfield sees Liverpool and Crystal Palace splitting their points. Likewise, a 0-0 match at the Etihad sees Man City and Luton taking a single point each. Arsenal still within reach as we close out the end of match week 4. It's the start of our European quarterfinals. Our teams will play 2-legged matches, one home, one away. The team with the higher number of total goals scored will take them into the next round. First up, Champions League. We start with Arsenal hosting German giants Bayern Munich. A goal by Martinelli gives Arsenal a 1-0 lead going into the second leg. Now in Germany, Bayern failed to score in the second half. The match ends in a draw, but Arsenal progress into the semis for being 1-0 up on aggregate. We travel to Spain for the first leg of Real Madrid against Man City. Julian Alvarez gives City an early lead, but Madrid quickly equalize. Level on aggregate, we travel back to England for the second leg. 2 big goals from Madrid see the Spanish team go 3-1 up on aggregate. They knock City out of the Champions League and will face Arsenal in the semi-finals. We switch to Europa League and see Liverpool host Atalanta in the first leg, who were known in EA Sports FC as Bergamo Calcio. Darwin Núñez gives Liverpool an early lead with Salah extending at the end of the first half. Atalanta take one back but fall short as Núñez responds for Liverpool. The Reds end the night 3-1 up on aggregate. Back in Italy, Atalanta host for the second leg. Goals from Mo Salah and Ryan Gravenberch extend Liverpool's lead. They end the night 2-0, up 4 on aggregate, and progress to face Benfica in the Europa semifinals. We're back for Premier League action in match week 5. Up first, Wolves host Arsenal. An early lead from Wolves sees them 2-0 up before the break. The Gunners failed to respond as Wolves ultimately proved too difficult. Arsenal end the night down by 4. Liverpool travel to Craven Cottage to face Fulham. Fulham failed to hang on in the first half from a fabulous header from Darwin Núñez. Liverpool go up 3 points. Finally, it's Spurs hosting City. Doku gets the opener for City inside the first half. Spurs fail to equalize, leaving City all 3 points. The title race grows tighter as all 3 teams end match week 5 with 71 points each, with goal differential as the sole factor separating the top from the rest. We break for the FA Cup semi-final with Manchester City taking on Chelsea. Expectedly, City open up the scoreline thanks to an early goal by Julian Alvarez. Chelsea fail to respond and City make it through to the FA Cup final. We enter the back half of our simulation with match week 6. Spurs versus Arsenal stays level, leaving the Gunners to draw an important point away. Cody Gakpo with a massive goal late into the second half takes Liverpool 1-0 up over West Ham. Liverpool take home a massive 3 points. And City prove themselves too tough for Nottingham Forest as Erling Haaland secures an important goal, keeping the match 1-0. City go up 3 points as well. Finally, we get some movement in the table as Liverpool go top, with City right behind on goal difference. And Arsenal move down to third. It's a massive shakeup, leading into the European semi-finals. Arsenal host Madrid in the first leg of the Champions League semi-finals. Deep into the second half, Gabriel Martinelli scores a massive goal for Arsenal. They'll head to Spain for the second leg, up by 1 on aggregate. It's Toni Kroos wonderfully giving Madrid the lead in the second leg. Arsenal and Madrid now tie 1-1 on aggregate. Madrid ultimately proved to be too much for Arsenal as a goal by Valverde in the second half sees Arsenal knocked out of Champions League football, leaving Liverpool the only English team left playing on European nights. And speaking of Liverpool, we head to Anfield as the Reds host Benfica in the first leg of the Europa League semi-finals. Benfica sneaks a goal behind Alisson and goes up by 1 in the first half. Benfica is able to score a second before Luis Diaz responds beautifully for Liverpool off a volley. The night ends with Liverpool down by 1 on aggregate. We start the second leg back in Portugal with Liverpool needing to respond big. Darwin Núñez with a lovely strike gives Liverpool the match lead and levels it on aggregate. But it's Di Maria who gets another back for Benfica. The game sits 1-1 with Benfica up 3-2 on aggregate. Shots at the post see Liverpool out of the Europa League, and it's no more European nights for any of our English teams. Okay, we're back in the Premier League with match week 7, and we begin with Arsenal hosting AFC Bournemouth. Arsenal are able to keep a clean sheet at the Emirates against Bournemouth, with Martinelli's goal in the first half enough to secure 3 points at home. At Anfield, a red card in the first half sees Tottenham Hotspurs take on Liverpool with only 10 men. Somehow, Spurs managed to take one from a corner late into stoppage time, taking 3 big points away from Liverpool. Lastly, Wolves deal a massive blow late in the first half against City. Wolves prove relentless in the second leg, taking 2 more goals. City managed to take 2 back, but ultimately go down 2-3 and drop points. Arsenal go back top of the table, just 1 point clear ahead of both Liverpool and City. It's time for match week 8. Manchester United delivers a crushing blow to Arsenal just before stoppage time. The Gunners go down at Old Trafford and drop an important 3 points. For Liverpool, a Salah goal and Curtis Jones' brace gives Liverpool a huge lead away against Aston Villa. Despite a consolation goal by Villa in stoppage time, Liverpool take home 3 massive points. Finally, Willian gives Fulham an early lead at Craven Cottage. A goal by Jack Grealish isn't enough for City as Cordova Reed makes it 2 for Fulham in the second half. City likewise drop 3 points. At the end of match week 8, Liverpool go back on top, with Arsenal down to second and City in third. Important games to play leading into match week 9. In London, Ben Chilwell gets a second yellow and Chelsea go down to 10 men against Arsenal. Gabriel Jesus capitalizes early in the second half, taking Arsenal 1-0 up. The scoreline stays the same and the final whistle sees Arsenal take home an important win. It's the Merseyside Derby as Everton takes on Liverpool at Goodison Park. Everton score 2 big goals before the first half is even over. However, a huge response from Cody Gakpo and Mo Salah gets Liverpool level in the second half. But it's Curtis Jones who steps up big and gives Liverpool the lead. The match ends 2-3 with Liverpool back up. And Brighton is able to hold off City at the American Express Stadium, keeping them level until the end. It's a draw that'll surely feel like a loss for City as the match ends 0-0. With just 1 match week left to go, it's looking like the race between Liverpool and Arsenal continues, as Manchester City's hopes of defending the title are now crushed. It's the FA Cup final and we have a Manchester derby at Wembley Stadium. Manchester City take on Manchester United. After a scoreless 90 minutes, the two teams fail to score in extra time and head to a penalty shootout. After 2 misses by Manchester United, a decisive penalty from Kyle Walker wins it for City. Manchester City are the winners of this year's FA Cup. And finally, it's time for our final simulation match week. As City can only stay third, we'll start with a match at the Etihad. Manchester City get a consolation win over West Ham, thanks to a goal from Ivan Kovacic. City's season comes to a regretful end. At the Emirates, an early goal inside the opening minutes takes Arsenal 1-0 up over Everton. Thomas Partey, however, gets a second yellow, leaving Arsenal down to 10 men in the second half. However, Everton fail to capitalize and Arsenal get a massive win. Now, it's all eyes on Anfield as Liverpool take on Wolves. Late into the first half, Wolves get a big goal, giving them the lead. Wolves then able to steal a second, but Luis Diaz steps up big to get one back. Ultimately though, it isn't enough as the Reds end up falling short. They end the night with a huge loss, Liverpool 1, Wolves 2. And there you have it. Arsenal are your Premier League title winners for the 2023-2024 season. Simulation, easy enough, right? Well, there's an inherent problem with EA Sports FC simulation. Continuity. Each match exists in complete isolation from the context of the world. A microcosm of football that starts and ends with a singular whistle. There's no way to accurately cover player fatigue, to take into account games played in a single week, and how that impacts performance. There's no way to portray how kickoff time can affect mentality. Nothing on injury recovery. Players exist in top form based on their FIFA rating. No more, no less. All the millions of little factors that affect us on a day-to-day basis really can't be replicated. The thing that makes the Premier League and life so exhilarating escapes replication. Unpredictability. Time will tell if Arsenal actually takes the title at the end of the season. Okay, we've put it off long enough. It's time to talk about the robot in the room. Currently, there's a lot of fear among artists and audiences when someone mentions the phrase artificial intelligence. Just a couple of days ago, audience at South by Southwest booed a pro AI sizzle reel before a screening of The Fall Guy. And Justifiably so, with the real lauding AI as both a culture and a platform that will make us more human. Not a very smart ad to lead with at one of this country's biggest art festivals. However, there is one sentiment that's sort of right, no matter what our feelings are about AI. It's sort of the future. Okay, before you lambaste me, let's get one thing clear. I'm not some sort of weird AI grifter. In fact, I think we're way past due on AI regulation, especially when it comes to generative AI. The dangers of using platforms like Sora or OpenAI's DALL-E to fabricate images, spread misinformation, or genuinely use it for ill intent is only becoming more dangerous as these platforms get better. And don't even get me started on artist plagiarism, or how ChatGPT is negatively impacting literacy and critical thinking. However, I do think we're currently in an era where using AI as a tool across several fields is already sort of the norm. And it's the iterative aspect of AI that'll benefit us the most, so long as we remember its use case is to help humans ease workflow, and not the other way around. Okay, time to get real for a second. This year, I lost coverage for health insurance. This means that as a citizen of the United States, I had to go through the state to buy coverage. The process was not the easiest. As someone who dealt with heart issues in the past, and who was dealing with them again at this time, finding a primary care physician who would see me was near impossible. There were virtually no doctors with availability in my network. Clinics with walk-ins would not call me back. Physicians who were accepting new patients weren't free until the summer. There was no way for me to see a doctor unless I went to a hospital. So, when I got sick, I decided I'd rather be in debt than dead and found myself in the emergency room. It was fucked up. But that's when I found out about the doctor shortage. In the US, healthcare workers are currently growing more and more sparse. They're either burnt out and quitting, not paid enough and overworked, or either can't afford to go through medical school or even get in. The problem is the very system we've created for ourselves. Privatized healthcare means that doctors are primarily paid through the most expensive procedures and not through general practice. The incentive for compensation is the exploitation of the average American. This means that offices that do see more patients in order to offset costs of operation are significantly overworked. There are too many administrative tasks tying up nurses and physicians, leaving less time for patients to actually get seen. The obvious answer is that there needs to be corrective legislation put in practice, like yesterday, but since we're too busy trying to ban TikTok instead of investing in the care and safety of our citizens,
it's an attempt to make TikTok better. Tic-tac-toe. A winner. A winner.
The answer is to treat the symptoms instead. This is where AI comes in. Machine learning is currently already helping various aspects of the medical field, despite its still rather limited implementation. On the care side, physicians are leveraging AI to help diagnose patients on a more accurate basis. Med School Insiders cites the use of the convolutional neural network, which was recently used to diagnose Kawasaki disease, a condition that causes inflammation in the walls of blood vessels. Classified as very rare, KD can prove fatal if left untreated. But since symptoms are harder to identify and overlap with other conditions, the chance of misdiagnosis rises significantly. Utilizing AI in this regard can help minimize this risk significantly, and may even exponentially as data sets continue to grow and improve. The key is, of course, using AI diagnosis as a first run, which should then be cross-checked by the physician themselves. It's a tool, after all, a robotic means, and not an end. Clerical work is also significantly reduced when AI is implemented on the administrative side. Less time drudging through antiquated privatized healthcare paperwork and protocol means more time spent on patient care. That's less effort on clerical holdups that leave doctors and nurses both overworked and overly stressed. And while we've only talked about one field, the robotic renaissance is happening across several industries, including ones we're already familiar with. Again, I think there's currently a lot of dangers with AI, specifically with how companies see generative AI practice as a means to replace humans. I don't think automation in any industry will ever be capable of the artistry that a human soul can birth, especially not when AI is still in somewhat of a technological naissance. There's way too much shit being made that's clearly not even passable as a mimicry of real human production. But when used as a tool, it sort of is making work easier and faster. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. In a post-COVID world, literacy has fallen drastically. There's figures that show the average reading level has fallen from a 9th grade level down to somewhere between 7th and 8th grade. Some say it should even be as far down as 6th grade. Instead of using platforms like ChatGPT to scrape together nonsensical writing, we can use websites like Hemingway Editor to help make our writing easier to follow. This helps us avoid compromising on core concepts. We don't have to gatekeep challenging ideas behind verbose writing. Analysis is for everyone. Tools like these help bolster artists and workers. One of the reasons I upgraded to DaVinci Resolve Studio is to help ease my workflow. YouTube is basically my job now, so leveraging AI to help speed up previously time-intensive tasks has been a lifesaver. Editing VO, I no longer have to sit and listen to an entire script from start to finish to cut out parts where I messed up. Instead, the first thing I do is run my VO through an automated transcriber. And because we read faster than we can listen, I can quickly edit out all my errors and place a clean cut into my timeline. AI isn't doing my job, it's just helping me run my first pass faster, so I can get to the part that matters. The editing. Tool assistance has been massive since I've upgraded. Rather than manually masking people or objects in a scene and keyframing every second, I can use the object tool to quickly identify shapes before running it through the tracking tool. Within minutes, I can start doing cool effects. If I wanted to, I could place myself next to Lorelai Gilmore. Man, should I stay here? AI doesn't have to be a scary word. It wasn't long ago we used to praise AI advancement, especially in gaming. Even the likes of procedural generation has its place among well-received games. But it's deep learning that has benefited what we call immersive experience the most. I can't help but think about The Last of Us Part 2 and the advancements Naughty Dog pulled off with their enemy AI. The key was in implementing more sophisticated responses to player input by raising the number of active NPCs, refining enemy awareness in regard to the player, and introducing a system where every enemy NPC is not only named, but can call out for others if they identify their friend as unresponsive. Adapting to the player for intelligent immersion. And the rabbit hole of AI in game design goes far deeper, not just within The Last of Us. While most of it is outside the scope of this essay, I strongly recommend 2 videos from the YouTube channel AI and Games, who gives insight on AI in The Last of Us and in the games industry writ large. I'll link both down in the description below for those interested in learning more of how AI is used behind the scenes of game development. Of course, AI in media production goes beyond games. Just a few years ago, the team at Sony Pictures Imageworks implemented machine learning in the production of 2018's Into the Spider-Verse. Machine learning played a huge role in the production of the movie, with AI helping animators merge 2D inking with 3D animation. Using AI, the team trained their software to identify moving outlines of face shapes, such as lips, noses, and jaw lines. Animators would then utilize brush tools to help nudge and correct any messy lines that weren't accurately predicted by the machine. This helped radically speed up the first pass of the animator's workflow and bring the creative but highly complex details of the film to life. Of course, the work wasn't actually easy. It took time to properly train and implement the tool they used. But The end result of machine learning made for an overall easier process, ultimately playing its part in helping the film win its Academy Award for Best Animated Film from its respective year. There's always going to be nonsense in the field. The benefits of utilizing AI to help bring the smell of napalm into my living room are far less useful than the more utilitarian practices. The machines that crunch data on climate change and food production, those are the real underdogs. AI still has its place, even just in the entertainment industry. I'm okay with AI collecting and interpreting data to help build a virtual reality experience of a live football stadium if it's also helping doctors create safe environments for surgical education. Carving the artifice from the artificial is the only sustainable implementation of AI. Because, after all, there are just some things it can't replicate. No matter how advanced, technology will always fail in simulating the heart of human endeavors. At its best, it's still only a hollow recreation. Autonomy is forever in question. As good as EA Sports FC is able to calculate millions of datasets to produce the stride of Virgil van Dijk, you can never recreate the passion and mentality latent inside the spirit. Shallow mimicry is replication absent of natural curiosity. You can train Netflix to match cut, but you can never teach it to capture beauty through intent and design. Look, I have no doubt that the ball physics of next year's EAFC will be better and more accurate. Maybe data will teach the game that Nunez is far more likely to hit the outside of the post as opposed to firing a rocket into the back of the net. But still, it'll never be able to replicate drive. That sort of element is reserved not just for the player on the real-world pitch, but the player holding the controller. Passion behind the sticks means more than data interpretation. Plasticity can be fun, but never a replacement. Who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we've already lost to the machine and I'm yelling into an algorithmic void, echoing false binaries repeating to no one ad infinitum, dreaming of carnal sheep under the shadow of SEO. I'd like to think not. I'd like to think we matter as the architects of human composition across all areas of art. AI cannot be the hand from which word is written, but instead, only a feather in the quill. It's a tool, after all. And if we're already circuitry, then none of this matters anyway. Maybe we're doomed to spiral in the shackles of the artificial, to witness copies of copies born from calculations, conditioned to scenes from corporate-sponsored capital C content. Time will tell. Maybe we're destined for a robotic future. Maybe Arsenal really does win the league. But it's not really a reality I want to live in. How about you? Like and subscribe.